Hello, welcome to the Record Celtic podcast brought to you by NordVPN. My name's Daniel Conn, delighted to be joined by Record Sport's Michael Gannon. Mick, I'm reading on Record Sport Online today, your latest Celtic hot take. Is this the weekend that the stars aligned for Martin O'Neill and Celtic in the title race?
Well, I'm just asking the question. I'm not making a prediction. I'm not putting any money down. I'm just saying, was this the weekend where the tectonic plates in the Scottish football title race shifted back towards Celtic? I suspect he'll be sitting next week after a different set of results and saying, "Oh, Celtic blown the league, or is now Hearts the favourite?" So who knows? But at this very moment in time, I think that the momentum has shifted back towards Celtic, with a massive caveat that I will prepare to change my mind again in a few days or a few weeks' time. But yeah, I feel like a big result and performance at the weekend against Motherwell. Given everything that has been kind of thrown in Celtic's way this season, it seems bonkers to even be suggesting that they're favourites for the title again.
Aye.
But that's what the bookies are saying. Listen, now, who am I to argue with the bookies? They're quite happy to take my money every week, so I'll go along with them. What they're saying at the moment.
It was a game though that I think a lot of fans were looking forward to. I was buzzing for it when it was coming up, just because the nature of how Motherwell have been playing this season. And see if you recall, when would it have been? Was it the 2nd of January or something when they last met? And Motherwell, I thought, played Celtic off the park that night. So I thought Celtic Park was going to be a great game. It was a really good game, and as you say, a huge result for Celtic, massive in the scheme of things. A couple of things that I wanted to get your take on in the game. The first one, Oxlade-Chamberlain. I thought he played really well. I thought you could see touch of class, almost scored a really good goal. How did you see his performance?
A wee bit more of a mixed bag, I've got to admit. I thought he was a little bit fortunate not to be in more trouble for his tackle on Elijah Just early on.
Aye.
I thought it was a very high end booking, and I think if a red card had come out, I'm not sure that VAR would have changed it. I said last night, not live. I thought it was a weird one. It looked bad in real time. I thought, oh, he's in big bother, and then when I saw it back, I thought, okay, it's not quite as bad. But it was quite late, and he's listening. The lad just had a big gash in his shin and a big lump. You could see it after about 10 minutes. Big lump in his shin. So yeah, I thought he was a bit fortunate. I thought for periods in the first half, I thought, see on the ball, there's no denying that he's quality. I mean, he's got a lovely ping of a pass. I mean, every pass is zipped into feet or pinged into space. It's a lovely way of hitting the ball. You can see it's top notch quality. I think he has got difficulty getting about the pitch at the moment. And I think a lot of the first half against Motherwell, you guys like I thought Cam Slattery, a good game as well. Just Slattery and Elliot Watt were more mobile, and they got around them and pressed Celtic, and it made it difficult. Listen, it's not easy because he's playing a deeper role, which isn't. I know he's played there for Galatasaray. That's not his position really. He's always been an advanced kind of midfielder. He's playing a deeper role, which is a very disciplined and hard working role. He's got Rio Tati, who's I'll get to him in a minute probably, but I thought a good game, but not the most disciplined in terms of his positioning. Guys like Benjamin Egan again, very good on the ball and getting dangerous areas, but not the most structured sometimes on the pitch. So he's got his work cut out basically. But what I saw was a lot of promising things from him, that suggesting that these are maybe, once his fitness is improving, it will improve by the week, that he's going to be an asset. I think he already is an asset, to be fair. I thought he had a decent game. I thought he won the second game. I was surprised to see him lasting as long as he did. But weirdly, because I thought he'll get an hour, and I thought this might be another tricky day after an hour. But then after he kept playing, and then when he went off after, I think it was 78 minutes, I thought he got stronger in the second half, which was a bonus for Celtic. That suggests that his fitness is coming along. So yeah, I thought it was encouraging. An encouraging display from Oxlade-Chamberlain in the circumstances. And you just think, if you can get yourself a wee bit sharper about getting about, he's going to be a real good asset. But we'll see.
We need to talk as well, Mick, about Yang, because I don't know how many times on this podcast, on Hotline Live, we've mentioned Yang, and it usually is somewhere along the sentence of, I can't believe he's still even there. I can't believe he's still such a key man. He was brilliant at the weekend. I thought absolutely brilliant. The 2 goals, and he is kind of a key player for Celtic now.
There's no kind of about it. He plays every week. Yeah, he's a bit like a lot of these players in this team right now. He's quite a bit of an enigma. I don't think anyone would predict him. He's now played over 100 games for Celtic. I don't think many people can quite believe that he's played over 100 games for Celtic. A bit part player at times, down the pecking order at times, but he'll come in, with a wee impact. I think Brendan Rodgers was always before was quite keen on him, but he was very flaky. He used to always say that the Brendan thing, if he's a player who thinks he's not up to much, he'll go, bless him, he works hard. He'd look, bless him. Usually after a poor game, he'd go, bless him. We ran about, but it wasn't very good. And he can be frustrating. His decision making is a bit suspect at times, but he has got a trick in him. He can beat a man, and he's got a goal in him now. I think it's 8 for the season he's got. He's a really nice lad. I mean, we don't talk to him a lot. We spoke to him after the game on Saturday. I think the last time was after him. He scored against St Mirren, and Brendan Rodgers said that he was playing well because his girlfriend was in town. So somebody was to be asking about. So I think to myself, and the connotations that has, I thought that's maybe a risky question. So I thought, I don't think that I should maybe go down that path. I did say to him, I said, you aware of this thing online about the Yang gang? And he burst out laughing, and he was doing it through interpreter. But he knew that we were asking in English, and he burst out laughing. He goes, yeah. Is it English? He said, yeah, I've heard about the Yang gang. It's great and all that stuff. And we asked him about his language skills, and he actually started speaking to us in English. And he actually said to us, I can speak English to the rest of the boys, but I'm a bit nervous in an interview. That's why I give him an interpreter. So he knows he can communicate now. And from what I can gather, he's a popular lad in the dressing room. He's coming across as a nice lad. And by the way, I think Celtic fans have given him a bit of a hard time over the years, I think, as well. And sometimes it's been wanted. But I think the punters are actually now appreciating that he does put in a shift. I mean, you can't fault the wee man for his effort. I mean, you can say sometimes the final ball or the last pass or his link-up play sometimes and his decision making. You can listen. You can point fingers at all this kind of stuff. I get that, but you can't say he doesn't put in a shift.
Gives everything. Aye.
And I'm surprised he's still about. I mean, I was there. I was out in Kazakhstan. It feels like a lifetime ago now. The start of the season for that qualifier, and he turned down one of the worst performances I've ever seen individually for about 20 minutes. It was like, oh my word, this is appalling. However, subsequently, he's now been overtaken by Joe Mvuka's display against Rangers last weekend. The all-time epic worst performance I've ever seen. So he's got that granny off his back as well. So listen, the wee man, he's going to need it because Mvuka's not going to cut it. I must admit, I chuckled when I heard Martin New after the game singing his praises. So I knew from the first training session and all that he was a player. I'm like, he just spent an entire January trying to replace him and failing. So obviously he's back to him again. But he's doing his job. He's got to have a big end to the season. But yeah, so fair play to him.
Aye, I think there's something about the fact that because he's taking a bit of stick because he was in, famously in Birmingham and ready to sign for them and stuff. There's a bit of goodwill towards him because, like you say, he just doesn't stop running. He gives absolutely everything.
I mean, some people have said that the likes of Dyson Maeda and Rio Tati look a bit huffy at times because maybe moves didn't come out. I don't quite buy that either, to be honest with you. I'm not sure I buy that either. But it's certainly not something you can label at Yang. I mean, there's no sign of him. Maybe you could say because he can't really tell how if he's been good or bad. I don't know. Maybe it's mood or his inconsistency affecting his performances. So maybe it's harder to tell. But in terms of the ruck rate, you can definitely tell he puts in a shift, and his teammates appreciate it. I think he could be a bit better at protecting his fullbacks at times, but he does put in a shift. I don't think you can fault him. Listen, is he the long-term answer for Celtic's right wing? I would doubt anyone would say he is. Is he useful having him at the place? I think he probably is. I mean, I think it must be there was a point where his contract is coming up.
I think he's got 2 years left still. I just googled that there.
Right, I wasn't really sure. I think his last contract was a big like a 5 year, or it seems like a 5 year deal or something, isn't it? 5 years and 23. One of these 5 year deals. So I think he's about for. Maybe that's not really an agenda as yet, and it depends on new manager coming in what to think of him. But in the meantime, he's going to have a part to play because he'll have to have a part to play, and he'll need to play well. But that's what Celtic are. Right, they've 8 games to go, and they need to play at their skins to get this job done.
Well, I was going to come to, you mentioned the next manager, and I'm going to come to that in a wee second. And also, I want to ask you about a couple of Motherwell's players because a couple of them I thought stood out a lot of the weekend. But just before that, while we're on Celtic, while we're on the game itself, the big moment in the match, Mick, for a lot of people was the penalty that Celtic won. Longelo on Maeda. I mean, look, I think it's safe to say, I haven't asked you about this beforehand, so I'm taking a guess here, but it was a penalty, wasn't it? There's no doubt about that. And a red card. I can kind of see the logic behind giving it a red card, denying a goal scoring opportunity. I don't know what you thought.
I must admit, I don't understand much of the argument about it really, because he's got a hold of, he's got the wrong side of Dyson Maeda. He's panicked. He's wrestled him to the ground, and the ball's dropping right at the front of Maeda. The goalkeeper who's come out flapping, so it's an empty goal. I mean, that ball was dropping in front of Dyson Maeda, in front of an empty net. And listen, to be brutally honest, would I still put money on Dyson Maeda putting the back of the net this season? I'm not entirely sure. That rule book doesn't say a direct goal scoring opportunity if the guy's in good form. It's just a what's it called? The dog zone they call it, isn't it? So it doesn't. There's no caveat for a guy who's got his shoelaces tied together this season. So yeah, I think it was pretty obvious. I
thought it was obvious too, but there seems to be a bit of controversy about that. I mean,
because it went to VAR. I mean, I think I said in the last show, I think John Beaton is maybe having a wee bit of performance anxiety.
By the way, I think that's a really good point.
Controversial calls on and off. I mean, and on the field or in the VAR hut. I think he just waited to find out. I'm not going to make the call because rather than get it overturned, it was just a bit embarrassing. I can wait and then they'll pick it up, and if it's a penalty, they'll give the penalty. So it's just a wee bit I don't know. I mean, John Beaton's one of our top officials. You wouldn't usually hesitate. If he thinks a penalty kick, he's standing right there. So I'm kind of at a loss why he didn't just point the spotter straight away. And then if it was something not quite right, that they can mop it up afterwards. But the only reason I'm thinking that is because it was similar with the Oxlade-Chamberlain tackle. He didn't make a big call then. And then there's a moment, I think, and I've not actually seen it back properly, when Chankarag's running through and gets clipped. And it looked a foul every day of the week, but it looked right close to the penalty area. So my first instinct was that looked more of a penalty than that Maeda one, because I hadn't seen that at the time. But again, the call wasn't made, and I thought maybe the referee's waiting for the guys in the video to kind of validate it. But I think it might have been outside the box, so therefore they couldn't even call it back as a free kick. You should have whistle what a free kick or a penalty kick, and then let them decide from that point.
Look at it.
Make the call and then wait for the VAR. Don't. I think he's maybe. Listen. I'm not a psychologist, a sports psychologist, otherwise, but I'm just thinking those three big incidents made me think: is he reluctant to make the big call and then have to get it tied up, or would he rather just not make it and let the boys sort it out behind them? Maybe I thought it felt a bit more like the latter. But listen, I thought. I mean, apart from those three moments, apart from the roads, the sanitation, the wine, the aqueduct, I thought he had a very good game. It was a cracking game. I know it's a Celtic podcast, but I thought Motherwell brought a lot to the party. It was a game we were looking forward to because we knew it was going to be a cracker, and it didn't feel disappointing. Didn't disappoint us. It was a really good contest for an hour. A lot of jeopardy. Motherwell were worthy of being in the game. Until that kind of that moment, and I thought Celtic second half. I thought they were pretty good. It'd be a nice wee change for Martin O'Neill to sit back with a 2-goal lead.
I
think that's the first time since his first game back.
Oh, you're right. Actually, now you say that, a 2-goal lead. I think you're spot on about that.
I don't think he's sat since the Dundee United game back in January. So he would be sitting not last for me with an extra man and 2 goals. And it's probably the only time he's been relaxed at any point in time.
I know, Mick, this, as you just said, is the Celtic podcast, and I don't want to make it into the Motherwell loving, right? But as you said, they brought a lot to the party at the weekend, and there's 2 guys that I just want to mention, because perhaps, and Motherwell fans won't thank me for this, but perhaps they could be Celtic targets in the summer. All I know is if I was doing Celtic's recruitment, I'd be taking a long, hard look at them.
And Steve O'Donnell?
Hey, listen, good players, but not quite the 2 I'm thinking of right now. Elijah Just is one. Brilliant goal at the weekend. You said it last night, actually, in Hotline Live. He looks like he's a bit 4 stone, dripping wet, but just such a brilliant player. And the other one that you mentioned earlier on the show, I was honestly really taken with it the weekend, was Elliot Watt. I thought Elliot Watt in the middle of the park dictated things. I thought he looked brilliant. And with all due respect to Motherwell, he just looked like he's capable of playing at a much higher level. He just looked like a brilliant footballer, to be honest. Those are the two that stood out. And the other thing that I wanted to get your take on is, did we watch an audition at the weekend for the next Celtic manager in Berthel Askou? Could you see him being in the home dugout next season?
Do you know what? I couldn't
understand, but
first of all, the manager. I understand the kind of the interest in him from outside, and from what I can gather, Celtic are looking at him among other options, and also from what I'm told, he is extremely keen on that Celtic job. He would go off. I know some people are saying, "No, he's looking further afield and that stuff." From what I'm hearing from people around about, his kind of his orbit, he would jog along the M74 to Parkhead. I don't think there's any doubt about it at all. I think he would snap it up in a heartbeat. Rightly so. It's a big job. I like what he's doing. I like the way he's got his team playing. I thought Motherwell have out Celtic all season. They play the very way that you would think is more kind of in tune with a Rodgers or a Postecoglou.
And the fact that we have to say here in mid-March, I have to say, by the way, mid-March, that's Motherwell's title challenge over.
Well,
in itself is remarkable.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure that it was ever really alive in terms of anyway. But the fact that even in the conversation, it's a brilliant job. It's not just the point. This year the points are kind of, it's a bit skewed in terms of everyone's points. I think Mike Mull have had similar points in the past in certain seasons, but this is the way they play. I think Motherwell fans will tell you that they're loving watching this team playing football. At half time, Motherwell had 56% possession at Parkhead in 45 minutes. I've never seen that in a domestic game, including Rangers. So that's a completely. That's a new scenario for Celtic to be in. That's because Motherwell, and he's got players that you think. As I say, I'm joking about McGinn. I don't know, terrific. Paul McGinn was brilliant. He did a bit of a mistake for the third goal. But by and large, I thought he was. Listen, he played centre half. He's not centre half. He was terrific. But yeah, the manager on the manager. Yeah, I like the cut of his jib. I like the way he plays. Everything you hear about the work he does and the structure he puts his team and the work behind the scenes and the kind of the drills and training and how he's nailed this in. I like the sound of it. My only concern is he's a manager managing in the Pharaohs and managing a season at Motherwell. Going from that to Celtic is a major jump.
Aye.
It's not just. I'm not talking about. It's not about on the coaching field, because I think he can cope. I think he's shown that he's a good coach and he can coach. It's the other stuff. It's the other things that drive managers of Celtic and Rangers up the wall. It is. It's the pressure is far more intense. The scrutiny is off the scale. It's relentless. It can feel overwhelming. We've seen many experienced managers get dragged into the old firm tumble dryer and come out looking like a bag of washing. So that's the only question mark. That's why, you look at Celtic's successful managers of late. Martin O'Neill's just clocked 1,000 games. Brendan Rodgers clocked 800 games before he locked out this season. Ange Postecoglou had 700 games. So you're talking the guts of 2,500, 3,000 games between the last three managers. Askou is nowhere near that as a manager, not even close to that as a manager. So that's the concern I would have slightly. That for all I think he's showing signs of being a really good coach. It's just that, is the Celtic job a job for the next big thing or a current big thing? And by the way, it might be coming to the market, because Celtic have obviously struggling. Maybe not struggling with the wrong word, but they're finding it difficult to get the kind of calibre of manager. Brendan Rodgers was a bit of a kind of outlier because of who he was and his background, and he fancied it. You don't get a Brendan Rodgers usually. No. So people thinking you're going to go and get that kind of calibre of manager, an English Premier League standard manager. That's not going to be easy for it to get, because now even wage terms sort of pay the same as the kind of mid-bottom championship in England. So that's the market. So therefore, did they go in for? But then again, Ange Postecoglou might have been in that market, But again, he was a good one that they dug out because he's success everywhere. He had a lot of games on his belt. He'd been at World Cups and all that stuff. So he's a very experienced guy. For all he was unknown to us, a lot of experience, and he got to that job because he was looking to find a club that would get him the foot in the door in Europe and all that stuff. So it's a bit of a stars aligning thing. No. So unless you think something like that, there's not been anything about because people got wise to it. Celtic thought they were getting that with Wilfred Nancy, but Wilfred Nancy had 180 games as a manager in the MLS.
No.
Won the MLS Cup. MLS is different to football in even Japan and America and Australia. It's different. It's different. And I think, listen, we can go that calls of Wilfred Nancy. He might have been successful if we could do a pre-season and get a chance to go for the bottom up. Landing during the middle of the season like he did, amongst all the turmoil and the problems with recruitment, he was a sitting duck from day one. I think he made mistakes, but he was a sitting duck. But what I'm saying is that at least the new guy coming in would have a fresh start in pre-season. So would that mean you could gamble on an up-and-coming next big thing? Maybe. Would Askou be the one? I think you mitigate that risk because he's in the league. He knows how to play against Scottish football, which I think gives you a start. How does that cope with European qualifiers? I don't know. The unknown things with Askou is how they cope with the pressure, the scrutiny, the European aspect. Could he cope with Scottish football and run Celtic? Probably could. But he's working on an organisation that is way bigger than anything he's bossed. He's 100 games and he was in with the Faroes, and he was in Denmark, one of the lower league teams in Denmark as well.
Denmark as well, I'm sure.
He's been assistant coach at big clubs, right enough, Copenhagen and Prague and that stuff. But it's a big job. So I don't know. The question is, after a long-winded 8-minute monologue, I don't know. But yeah, I think he's a person of interest, and he'd be interested.
Well, the thing is that a lot of people throw stones at Scottish football, the standard of it. But I think you've hit the nail on the head when you say that, look, for whatever you think about the standard of play and the fact that there's no money in Scottish football, people can scoff. But I'm telling you, it's like nowhere else. I mean, look at Russell Martin. I've made this point a couple of times, but like Russell Martin got Manager of the Month when he was in the English Championship with 2 wins and 2 draws. Now, when he come up here to Rangers, 2 draws, and you're having phone-ins about whether or not you should keep your job. That's the difference. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's unlike anywhere else, Scottish football. It's hard to explain to people that aren't familiar with it. But I think you make a lot of valid points. I think Askou would be a brilliant manager in some ways, but does he have the experience? I mean, it's a big question mark.
Yeah, interesting one. I think he has a bit about him. So yeah, I think it's it looks obvious, but I think let's wait and see.
The other one, a couple of things that I need to touch on before we wrap up, Mick. Julian Araujo, his brother has been on Instagram last night, and I was actually frantically trying to get the grab from Instagram there. It's been on
his cousin.
Is it his cousin?
I don't know.
He was telling to people, he was saying to people on Instagram, I'm his brother, and then people were saying, you're not his, and he was saying, brother from another mother. So I thought, God, who knows? But it's the wee guy, he's got in tow, he's been in Glasgow with him, he's been out with him and all that. And he was saying last night he was getting asked.
I'm going to say, sure this is not some sort of wind-up, actually.
No, I had pictures with him and all that. We did a story on it last night, and he was saying, is your brother staying in Glasgow? And he came back saying there's a very high chance. So is he just getting Celtic fans excited, or should Celtic fans who are falling in love with Araujo, start to get excited at the possibility he might be here next season? I think he's on, from what by all accounts, big money at Bournemouth, isn't he? Well,
listen, this is going to come down to cash. And it may come down to the man himself, because he's got 2 years left at least on his deal in Bournemouth. And he's not on chump change at Bournemouth, I'll put it that way, because it is a guy signed from Barcelona for 9 million quid. So a £9 million signing from Barcelona comes with a hefty wage bill. I mean, I'm led to believe it's somewhere north of 65, 70 grand a week, wow. which is beyond. Listen, I'm saying I've not got that nailed down, and it's but that's
even if it's roughly, even if it's in that ballpark.
You're in that ballpark. You're in that 60k a week plus ballpark, and that's the going rate for a backup right back in the Premier League these days. That's scarily enough. So you're in that kind of ballpark. So he's got a couple of years left. So for Araujo to stay at Celtic, he's going to need to take a pay cut for a start. So he'd need to negotiate either walk away from 2 years on that kind of money, and say rip up my contract, but I wish you the best, or you can sell me for, I don't know, 4 or 5 million quid. And I imagine they'll take. I don't think it costs that much to get him. When it costs £8.5 million, he's not part of their plans.
I could get him for 5, maybe. Say.
So maybe so they could afford to buy him, but they wouldn't pay $70,000 a week. That's for sure. Not for a fullback who they've already got a good fullback who's come back from injury. They've already got a World Cup playing fullback in Arthur-Johnson. So financially, yeah, it's a tricky one. Listen, if he can say, well, give me a year's wages from Bournemouth and I'll go and I'll take a pay cut, then yeah, but that's not realistic. This guy's got a family to look after, and you can't expect him to do that. And you can't expect Bournemouth just to say, right, we'll just let you go for buttons either. So there's a lot of things that need to happen to get that deal done. Yeah. Listen, what I would say, listen, I mean, I think he's performed pretty well. He's an infectious character. I think fans have kind of lapped him up. He's a wee scrapper. I mean, I don't think he's quite as offensively effective as Celtic need for that kind of role, if I'm being perfectly honest. At a time when Celtic are struggling for creativity in the flanks, you need their fullbacks to create more. Kieran does at one side, so does Sriracha. I think the right-hand side, he's a wee bit lacking that. He's not one for whipping tremendous balls into the box or hitting the byline and all that stuff. No. So I think for all his defensive abilities are terrific. And I think in Europe especially, it'd be brilliant. I mean, again, but Arthur-Johnson was similar when he came, and he's added the kind of attacking aspect to his game, underlapping, overlapping. But I think he lacks in that. So it's a lot of money for a guy who doesn't quite fit the identikit for Celtic fullbacks. Have to be borderline wingers in Scotland.
Right.
And defensive warriors in Europe. It's a hard gig. It's a hard gig. So I don't know. I know. I mean, people are. For me, the chances are slim of it happening. And listen, you might get to the end of next August window, and he's not been picked up, and get another loan deal for a season or something like that. Then I think, then you never know. So it wouldn't surprise me. He's clearly lapped it up being up here, and he's bought into it. He seems to kind of embrace the madness up here, which is always good.
When you saw him swinging for the crossbar at Ibrox last week, you thought,
yeah, there's embracing the madness and adding to it. So he's done that. He's definitely brought that.
The reason why I asked you that, Mick, is because my first thinking was surely there's no way that's a deal that could be done, and I wondered maybe if you'd heard into the contrary. But
I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot that need to happen. It's a lot of money for a could potentially be a backup right back next season. On Arthur-Johnson, but after a year out, I would doubt that's happening.
Aye. Very finally, Mick, there's fixtures coming up. Celtic, the City Discovery, obviously the next 2 games. Dundee United, Dundee, before the league splits, and then at home at St Mirren. The 2 Dundee games, I don't think either of them are going to be easy. I mean, Dundee United will be hurting after that remarkable Dundee derby yesterday. I don't know, did you see the clip of Jim Goodwin after?
I did.
Oh my God, he looked like he was absolutely furious.
I didn't miss.
I didn't miss. And then obviously Dundee they're kind of one of the informed teams at the minute. Stephen Presley's got them playing really well. They're going to be 2 hard games, and we can see the league table as well. You've mentioned obviously at the top of the show, maybe this was the weekend that it fell into Celtic's grasp, but still 8 games. Anything could happen from this point.
Yeah, it's these are 2 tough games. I think Dundee United had a poor season. There's no getting away from it. But they're pretty ordinary. I mean, they had a great season last year. This year's been pretty substandard. They're kind of middling along, aren't they? That hurt them. That collapsed. I mean, I thought they bossed the game, and then they collapsed at the end. Terrible goal to lose as well. And then,
I know, really bad.
Own goal. So yeah, I think it's going to be a difficult game. Celtic obviously lost up there under Wilfred Nancy during the wild days of Wilfred Nancy.
And that was a bizarre game, Mike. If you remember, Celtic were so dominant in the first half. In the second half, it all changed.
I mean, they completely battered United for 45 minutes, never scored, missed a map, a ball of chances, and then ran out of puff and get picked off. So a different game completely this time round. I say United, I think, look like a team heading for the summer. I mean, I just look like a team, not much going on, not much happening. Jim Good was trying. I think this is the last 2 days for him trying to put a rocket under them last. I mean, listen, I think he was raw after the game when he spoke.
Just happened.
Difficult. Dundee as well, when Celtic lost up there as well. I mean, Brendan Rodgers lost up there. That was the scene of the famous Honda Civic line.
Was it really?
Yeah, the one of the great Scottish football lines. It probably could be this line of the season. The Honda Civic. I mean, Celtic won the league this year with the Honda Civic champions and all that. So
you said this earlier, Mick, but that feels like a lifetime ago. That feels like a different. It feels bizarre that that's this season.
does. It feels like a long time ago.
Would you? I mean, I would back obviously Celtic to be victorious in probably all those games. But my only worry, Mick, is who's going to score the goals.
This is the big thing. This is the thing. They've not got a striker that's scoring goals. I mean, Chankara's scored from the penalty spot at the weekend, having on the back of his penalty in the shootout last week. You think that might spark him? Thought he was okay when he came off the bench on Saturday. Dyson Maeda is. I think Dyson Maeda is going to catch fire. He's 14 games without a goal. He's working his socks off. I think at some point he's going to score. And it might be that he hits a wee hot. I think Dyson Maeda is going to be the man that's going to catch fire and get a few goals.
Are we now at the stage where it just basically he has to be the striker? I think. Can he be Adamu? Can he be Chanchara? Ian Acho's bombed out. It's got to be Maeda.
I think it has to be. Yeah. I mean, I think Chankara might be one. He might be one that will get his. I think they'll depend on what the games are playing in. And listen, Celtic change in game often because I mean I don't think they've been leading a game after an hour since domestically since that United game either. I think every game's been in the balance after an hour. I mean, none of them have. I mean, always late goals, obviously. I think
you're right about that.
Or comebacks. So I mean, they've been behind or drawing at that time in most of these games. So and many times I've seen Martin making 2-3 subs at half time. Even at the weekend there, he made changes again. So it's running repairs sometimes. So but I think Maeda might be the man to catch fire. And the reason why I think it stars could be a line is going back to the original intro. See, top and tail, Daniel. It's always top and tail.
That pro work.
You always return to where you started. That's what you do when you're writing in your pods. You get through these two games, then it's St. before the split at Celtic Park, the cup tie as well, obviously. Then three out of 5 are going to be at home. So the last 5 games they're going to have 4. The last 6 games they're going to have 4 at Celtic Park. And listen, Celtic's record at Celtic Park this year hasn't been great, but you've got to take account that they've lost 3 games and drawn 1. 2 of the defeats were Hearts and Rangers during the ill-fated, aforementioned Wild Times of Wilfred. Martin's only lost it once, and it was Hibs with 10 men.
That sounds like a western or something you'd seen on Netflix, The Wild Times of Wilfred.
The Wild Times of Wilfred. Yeah. There's definitely a Netflix series in this season, that's for sure. So 4 out of 6 at home. And I mentioned in Match Sport on Monday's paper that I sensed a wee shift in the stands as well. That I think the fans are seeing this team that is limited at times and is lacking in key areas, but they're working their knackers off to get results. And it's almost thought, right, I got a sense it was almost like all the other stuff, the board stuff, the protests and all that, we'll park it and give these guys a bit of backing. Because when Motherwell scored all season, teams have taken it. It's been quite common instead of going behind this season, and then straight away it's "Why you boarding?" But so they're shouting at the director's box and all that. Didn't really happen. It was a kind of roar to get them back into the game, and they scored within 6 minutes. And I did notice it. I thought that's different. That's something I've not seen this season. And then in the second half, it doesn't. Don't get me wrong. There's a few. I mean, there's a chance when Benjamin Negan got a chance early on. It was nothing each. The ball bounced him, and it didn't be taken by surprise. And it just hit off him, and they were howling in frustration. That's different. That's not the protest. That's just that happens. That's not happening when Celtic were 15 points at clear. There's howling in frustration at certain times. But I just felt that it was almost I'm not saying an amnesty or a peace, but a truce. But it did feel like, you know what, these players are all right. They're not the best team they've seen probably in about 35 years, but they're certainly working hard. And the manager is Martin O'Neill. So let's give them a bit of backing. If that stays the way it is through these 4, if they get through these 2 away games, they'll get 4 out of 6 at home, and that's the kind of unified front in the home at Celtic Park. That's going to take a bit of shifting because that momentum can help Celtic over the line. So that's why I'm back to my as the plate shifting towards Celtic. Albeit it could change again after 2 miserable trips to Tayside, and then it's back to the Jambos.
Tune into the next Record Celtic podcast when we'll be talking about how it's all changed again. But for this week, I think, Mick, that brings us to the end of the Record Celtic podcast, brought to you by Nord. VPN. Mick, as always, it's an absolute pleasure. Thanks very much for joining me.
No worries, no doubt. I'll speak to you again in a couple of hours, no doubt, the next show.
I was going to say, I'll be catching up with you very soon, I suspect.
I see you more than seen the wife these days.
Well, lucky you.
To be honest, mate, I got easier time with yourself, so it's no big deal. It's
a match made in heaven. Thank you very much for listening at home, and stick with Record Sport for all of the latest Celtic news, views, and stories. Thanks for listening.